Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first session. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Priolo. So we're starting off here.
Yeah, can't hear you, but I can take it from here. That's fine. So again, welcome. Oh, Chris is back. We're here for the first session with Jim Womack. Hello, Jim. Welcome.
Hello.
Jim is the founder and senior advisor to the Lean Enterprise Institute in the USA and the author of the most important books in the Lean world. Machine That Changed the World, Lean Thinking and Lean Solutions. Today, Jim is going to be setting the stage for this event. So I will not steal any more of his time, and I will be back for the Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. Over to you, Jim.
Okay, let me go to share screen. If we got that. There we go. Okay. All right, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on your circumstance. Delighted to be here. Last year, I was, let's see if we're going to do this. Why is this not working here? Let's see. Roberto, can you move the slide?
Hold on. No. I can't.
Let's see. Here we go. I think we got it.
You got it.
There we are. There we are. Amazing, this technology. Never ceases to amaze and terrify. All right. Last year, I was still in a post-pandemic haze. And so when asked to give a talk for the Lean Global Connection, I came up with a list of all the problems we faced. And these were things that had emerged both during the pandemic and before the pandemic. I called them the crises of Lean. I said, crises are good, but we have to have something to say. So that was where I came in. This year, in putting the program together, we're trying to move forward, not just think back. And so the folks who've done this have consulted with all the LGN affiliates and their coaches and the participating firms that they coach and asked them what challenges they see ahead as we go into the post-pandemic world. And it's quite a list. It is quite a list. And that's all big stuff. And during the next 24 hours, you will hear from the different affiliates and partner organizations around the world how they are dealing with these problems. And they're not all dealing with each, but every talk, I think, will have some relevance to this list of problems that we face looking ahead. And that's a great thing. It's so great to be moving forward. For my contribution, I thought, well, gee, what could I do to get us going? Those out there who know me and those who don't know me will now know that I don't actually do anything. I don't do Kaizens. I don't take reality and adjust it. I don't do any hands-on. I think, I write and I talk, and I try to talk about issues that are relevant to our community. And the big thing I have been thinking about is that we don't seem to have much voice out in the world beyond this kind of interaction, that people don't hear us. But I think it's because we haven't raised our voice. I think we haven't really tried that hard to project our message. So I thought today I would just talk about 6 things that we might do to project our message. And they are shortages, why JIT is not the problem. We are endlessly accused of being the villains in every shortage that happens for any reason, anywhere. This is not true. We're not the problem. We're actually part of the solution. I'll get to that in just a minute. Reshoring, maybe that's a bigger issue for Americans and Europeans than it is for some others. But there's a need to actually think first, to try some lean math. Industry 4.0, before you reach for your wallet, you ought to turn on your brain. And there's some things we need to think about how we can help. What I call lean at launch, which is how we shift from really a rework movement in which we take value streams that have been launched into production, should never have been done that way. And then we step in to fill the gap by trying to rework these value streams up to a level that they could have been to begin with. Retaining employees, everybody is concerned about this. I think we have a way to talk about that. We've not been doing that yet. We should. And then finally, green. That green really is lean? No. Is lean green? No, but lean is the critical, essential enabler of green. And we need to get that message across. So let me go through each of these very briefly, remembering that we have to stick tightly to time here. And so that's, just say this. Hey, when someone says to you that JIT is the cause of shortages, tell them that this can't be true because the world does not run on JIT. Despite our best efforts, the world runs on MRP, Material Requirements Planning, inside ERP. And these great, massive corporate systems, so hard to change. But we've not had much luck with installing real JIT systems, except within a few factory walls. And obviously Toyota can do it, but that doesn't mean anybody else is. So that JIT is not the problem. And by the way, MRP is not the problem either with shortages. These are all about black swan events that neither JIT nor MRP, which are designed to deal with daily operations in a reasonably smooth world. That's what they're designed to do. They're not designed to deal with a tsunami. They're not designed to deal with a pandemic. They're not designed to deal with the earthquake. And so those do generate shortages, and we need to do something. And what, if you read the media, people are saying, well, gee, you lean guys took all the inventories out of the system. And so therefore now there's no inventory to keep producing when there's some disruption, okay? And this can't conceivably be the solution either. Don't know whether you remember the old factory world, but you did have inventory stacked up everywhere. And about those factories, Taiichi Ohno famously said, the more inventory you had, the less likely you are to have the one part you actually need. But what he meant was that there's always point failures because everything is out of balance. So if you got 2 months of every part, except for one where you've got 2 days, you can continue producing for 2 days. That's all the slack you've got. So the real issue here is not to go put in great big additional stocks. And by the way, emergency stocks in some cases, like ventilators, are something that society ought to do. But for the most part, the real thing is to have a recovery plan for when one of these unpredictable, unknowable black swan events happens. You've got a recovery plan so you can quickly get back on track. And that's what makes us lean folks the good guys, because what we do every day with daily management and real-time problem resolution and continuous Kaizen is we build the capability in everybody to jump in when there is a crisis and to rebuild. The famous case of the Aishin factory that Toyota had in Japan that made all the brake valves for all cars in the world, burned to the ground. And Toyota always sends the OMDD folks, that's the lean core folks, Operations Management Development Edition folks, set up a war room, but then they don't have to fly thousands of people in. The people who worked in that plant know how to do Kaizen. And when you think about it, recovery is just Kaizen. So that in fact, the best way to deal with black swan events is to develop your recovery capability, and lean is the key to doing that. So don't let people say that we are responsible for shortages. Reshoring, big thing in the States now, very concerned about geopolitics. By the way, to the Chinese folks from our affiliate on this call, it's not about you. The world's a crazy place, stuff happens. But nevertheless, there was this great rush to offshore. And now there's a deep reflection. And what I say and what we should say is don't reshore anything unless you have done some lean math. And we've been talking for a while about lean math, but we just haven't communicated it outside our community. And that means you've got to count everything, not just piece part price plus slow freight, but all those engineer visits to try to get the quality right, and the currency shifts and the geopolitical shifts and the bankrupt suppliers and all that, people consider all of those costs to be zero. In fact, over time, they're very substantial. So before you go moving anything anywhere, we need to advise people to do some lean math to figure out what total cost is, total cost, most probable total cost, and then do the right thing. Regard to Industry 4.0, again, the word on the street is that we're against technology. Always told Taichi Ono, who has been gone for so many years now, was against computers. That's not true at all. That Ono said, let's start with value and the value stream, and then let's look in every case at the technology that would reduce cost, reduce lead time, improve quality, improve the work experience of the people, and let's experiment, not just dive in, but let's experiment with technologies that seem most likely to do that. By the way, one of the technologies I've been looking at recently, this is not a product endorsement, won't name names, but looking at a firm that is trying to do apps that are no-code apps that can actually be done by Kaizen teams to help get the information that the production folks need as they try to do Kaizen without having to disturb the big ERP, which is a nightmare, and IT never gets back to you, and your ticket's always on the bottom of the pile and all that. So there's a lot of thinking for us to do. We're not against technology. We're in favor of technology for the long term. We are in favor of technology that reduces cost, increases employee engagement, that improves quality and so forth. And we need to think about that before we do anything else. And by the way, at the bottom, as I say, don't forget Karakuri. Karakuri is this wonderful recent Toyota idea about how to do improvement with technology, technology which has no code, which has no power, which has no CapEx, and which actually, with a little bit of creeform, it's amazing what you can do. Lean at launch. We've in this world of rework. And by the way, this has been a wonderful thing for OpEx teams. The products are put out into production with production processes that can't possibly achieve what's needed, but that's okay because the OpEx team in the fire truck is on the way. And so we've got to move from that to a world where we do all that Kaizen after the fact, we do before the fact. Just before the pandemic, our LEI tour in Japan went to Kyushu, the Toyota big Lexus complex, and we looked at a team of frontline workers doing Jishuken, that's a big Kaizen, a year ahead of launch, to think about all the issues they would have to deal with before launch so that they could launch on time and immediately ramp up to full production. Not the manufacturing hell that Elon Musk believes is necessary, and that he's now just starting with his Cybertruck, launched today, and it will be in full production within a few years. Within Toyota, it would be within full production within a week. So therefore, we need to get on the right side of the curve there and make sure that our voice is heard. Retaining employees. Absolutely, we've got to pay people a viable wage. We shouldn't expect people to work even in the leanest environment for no money. But the kick here is that we have to turn waste into compensation. I was looking at a company here in the Boston area, manufacturing company recently, and spent a day with the company, little company, had about 50 people, 25 of them on the shop floor. Got to the end of the day and we had a team meeting. And I asked the people on the shop floor, who all looked exhausted, how many had a second job. All hands went up. Every single employee being paid $12 an hour had a second job. And get this, the operations manager had a second job as well. He delivered drugs at night for a big pharmacy chain. So I turned to the owner and I said, you've got to turn waste into compensation. And then once you do that, you have to create a respectful, engaging environment, because that's why people stay. It's not why people come, that's probably for the money, but they stay because it's a fulfilling life. And that's what we know how to do. Create a fulfilling life with daily management. Everybody is involved in doing the work and improving the work and feeling good about the work, even though it's hard to improve the work. And that also permits employers to protect employees in the downdraft, because they're very good at recovery when things really go wrong. Green. I wish I could say that lean is inherently green, but that's not true. We got a call a long time ago from a coal mine operator. Coal mine operator wanted to know how to create a lean coal mine. We said we're not interested, but we could have. I mean, you could imagine how it could have had lower cost, higher quality, shorter lead time. That would have been, well, it would have been lean, but it wouldn't have been green. So we have to think about this anytime you're thinking about, is this green? The question is, what are the freed up resources used for? If they're used for some bad purpose, well then, wait a minute, let's not call that green. But we know how to be the great enabler, because just take the case of electric vehicles, which are getting some pushback now, at least in North America, because they cost too much. The consumer who lives in the here and now and is trying to make the mortgage payment and send the kids to school says, gosh, I'm supposed to make a big sacrifice in my standard of living for generations ahead. Count me out. What we need to do is take green technologies, which right now are struggling because they cost too much, and by working together, figure out how to take out waste, take out cost, of course, add quality, so that green is affordable. And we are uniquely suited to tackle that mission. So those are 6 areas where I think our voice is not being heard. How could we raise our voice? Well, I don't have a simple plan, but it does seem to me that as a community, that we could draft some explanations. Some, hey, you didn't hear what we were saying, let's say it again. They particularly need to be shared with media. It is amazing. We have in America a term quality media. I don't know how that plays around the world, as opposed to that awful, noisy social media. And quality media like Bloomberg and Reuters and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are supposedly able to tell a story that's technically correct. And in the case of lean, it is just not true. All of those organizations in their data banks have the paragraph, and when the word shortage pops up that they need to write about, they just plug in caused by JIT. I'm telling you, it's there. So we need to actually engage those people. We have done very, very little to engage media since the early days of this movement, and we can do better. And then, of course, we need to share it with our partner organizations who may be wavering. Should I really do this lean thing? Because, gosh, it seems to have so many problematic features. That's not true. We need to explain that. So I'm hoping that we will, as we move ahead, and we are moving ahead, but let's move ahead faster. Together, we can come up with a message that actually engages the world, that speaks to everybody, that talks about what we do right, not about what we do wrong, and how together we can create a better world. As I say there, so we can go on the offensive. All right, well, that's a thought. It's just a thought about how we might move ahead. We're going to hear now in the next 24 hours from the Lean affiliates and many of their partner organizations around the world about how they are individually addressing those 9 big challenges that I listed. And maybe they've got some ideas on 6 ways we could raise our voice. Let's do that now.
Thank you, Jim. That was great. Thank you for sharing your reflections on where we are really as a community, where we can look forward to try and grow our reach, make sure that we can touch the lives of more people. I have a couple of questions for you coming from our viewers. Let me see if I can put one up. Answer live. All right. So Restrepo Perez Constantino asks, what does Jim think about teaching lean in the early years of schooling? For me, it is tackling the root cause and can help to ingrain the right mindset, which will make it easier to engage people at a later stage.
Well, it is amazing. I invite you to perform this experiment yourself. In your life, in your education, how much time did people talk about problem solving? How much time did they talk about improvement? How much time did they talk about root cause? How much time did they spend on confirmation bias and all of the faults in human reasoning and logic? Well, lean tries to address all of those. And yet most people don't actually hear anything about that until they join some company. It's amazing. And by the way, with regard to science, what are we taught? You do it in a laboratory, you wear a white jacket, you have one variable at a time, everything's controlled, and that's where we do science. Whereas the great contribution of lean has been to manage by science rather than manage by KPI, which is what the world most easily does. So the question is, should we be able to teach people young this? Absolutely. Why don't we? And yet it's a big topic. It would be wonderful to share in the LGN what people might be doing in that area. I know in the States, we've had some people who are dealing with younger educational, lower level education, talking about how to teach lean. That would be great information to share. Should we do that? Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim. We have another question. How to handle the current job situation, not feeling attached to organizations' different priorities for millennials, job cuttings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me point to our good friends at Toyota and say just for a fact that during the pandemic, Toyota never laid off any permanent employee anywhere in the world, even though at times their production was cut in half. And what did the people do? They did Kaizen. They did other kinds of improvement activities. And Toyota has made a pledge to its people. And here's the pledge. If you will do your work and improve your work, do your work and improve your work actively, we can defend you. And we'll keep a large enough cash reserve that we can get everybody through these black swan events, these deep recessions. And that's the obligation of the employer. By the way, that's not a legal thing, lifetime employment. That doesn't exist anywhere in Japan in any contract. But it's an obligation that is taken on between employers and employees. Isn't it amazing that outside of that company, the world has gotten to be less and less interested in mutual obligation? Employers don't seem to feel any obligation to employees, and employees reciprocate. They don't feel any obligation to employers. So it's a vicious negative circle. Somebody's got to start it in the opposite direction. I think the employer has to start it by saying we're going to do two things. We're going to defend your job, and we're going to give you engaging, respectful work. Respectful, engaging work. And when we do that, that includes improving the work all the time, and that makes it possible for the employer to defend you. So that's the virtuous circle that we wish to replace the vicious circle with, and it would be great if we can do that.
Thank you, Jim. We have two questions around green. I think we said struck a chord about lean and green not necessarily going together. So we have two people asking sort of similar questions. Let me read them out. And so given that the energy transition requires some level of fossil fuel as input as we transition from the current energy system to the clean system, would it not be beneficial to make that volume of fossil fuels is recovered in a lean way? And the other one says, which is along the same lines, it says lean, so reducing non-value added, seems to be green friendly, right? Can you explain why you said lean is not green related naturally? It seems that it can be a valuable support of analysis.
Yeah. Well, let's suppose that I'm running a company that is building a product that produces a lot of carbon dioxide, for example, automobiles. And let's suppose I apply lean thinking and I figure out how to make that product with half of the effort, half the resource, and I'll cut the price in half. So now people can buy twice as many of these vehicles that emit carbon dioxide, or they can take the savings and use it to buy a boat that emits carbon dioxide, or they can use it to take a jet plane trip, which emits carbon dioxide. You see what I'm saying? That you take all the waste out, but what do you do with the waste? And the answer is that you take the waste out and apply the savings to reducing the price of green products and making green products competitive or more than competitive with old-fashioned brown products that belch all kinds of things. And we build a better world. By the way, good question you ask. Suppose that you had a coal mine. Would it be better to have a lean coal mine than a brown coal mine. And that one I'll leave to you. I think that's not a condition we're going to face very often. That what we are going to face is a lot of technologies that would really be good if we could transition the whole world to. I just put in a heat pump hot water tank in my house, which is fired by my solar powered roof. And I did it because it was the right green thing to do, and it cost me a whole lot of money. And most folks are not going to do that because they either don't have the money or they're just not willing to reduce their spending in other areas to do it. So there's a big job there. And so Lean's job, to repeat, we're the great enabler. We're the enabler of green. And we need to make that message clear so people understand.
Thank you, Jim. There are a million questions, so of course we're not going to have time to answer them all, but like another one, in the corporate world, management systems tend to grow in terms of documents and processes, making them more complex to follow. What would be the best practice or suggestion to clean the systems and make the processes more functional and friendly to everyone to follow? Where to start and how to engage people in this cleaning process?
Well, one of the typical Kaizens is to look at a process, not just in terms of the flow of the product, but in the flow of the information and in the flow of not just production control information, but the documentation that goes with the product, and find a way to make that accessible when you need it. I was talking earlier about a company I've been looking at here that is trying to, through no-code apps, in other words, they've got a platform for a work team to create through apps the screen they need that accesses the information they need so they can do a better job. All right, well, I think that's a very promising area. Trying to get rid of ERPs, our manufacturing execution systems, our MRPs. At this point, that's just very heavy lifting. Dr. Michael Hammer warned us 25 years ago that you should obliterate before you automate. And that's to say before you put your ERP in place. But we went ahead and put our ERPs in place with lots of screwed up processes that are hard for everybody to deal with. So we have to find a way around that. And I think just a blanket replacement of those systems is going to be very hard. But we have to think as lean thinkers about ways we can do improvements that are doable, that don't cost much, and by the way, that makes the workers feel better. I've spent so much time in office environments watching people, grinding their teeth at screens, trying to do their work, and systems that simply do not support them. So there's a tremendous opportunity for us there.
That's great. I think we have time for one more, if we can answer it in 1 minute. Maria Tatiana asks, the central headquarters of the company where I work requested the need to work with continuous improvement, but the local leadership did not agree. They like to be firefighters. What is your recommendation how to change the leadership mentality?
Well, look, let's lead through example. That's why Toyota started out a long time ago in their missionary efforts to emphasize the model line. Said, why don't we not try to fix the whole company? Why don't we just take one product family and see if we can demonstrate all of the good things that can be achieved by applying all of our lean thinking? And we've been pretty good at that. There is a follow-on process called Yokoten, which is how you spread that good learning, those good ideas across the whole organization. That's much harder. But it's really, really hard if you don't have a success story to start out with. If you don't have something you can point to that's in your company that has actually made life better for people, that's made the company more competitive, it's hard. So it really is important to have those model lines, if you will, that demonstrate that in your company right now, this can be done. And then the ball's in the opposite court. You can say to everyone else, well, wait a minute, we just did this over here. Why can't we do it over there? And there are always a million reasons why you can't do it over there. And then you just have to go through them and say, well, no, that's not a reason. That's not a reason either. That's not really a reason. And eventually the good guys win. I do believe that. I'm a long-term optimist. I just think it's a long ways to the long term. and we need to be taking actions every day that actually change something and make it better as a demonstration.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much,
Hello.
everyone. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Jim. Can you hear
Hello.
me now? Yes?
We can.
Perfect. So, Jim, thank you. Thank you very much, Priolo. Unfortunately, time is up. Hope you guys can stay there also in the chat, in the lobby, talk to people. But now we will have to go to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.